The journey through the wilderness. After the Israelites escaped from Egypt and crossed the Red Sea, a new chapter in their journey began. They were free at last. Filled with excitement and hope, they set out into the wilderness, but challenges awaited them. Under the leadership of Moses, the people felt the warm sun on their faces. They began to sing songs of praise and thanksgiving to God for their miraculous escape. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted, they sang joyfully. However, their joy was short-lived. Just 3 days into the journey, the people grew thirsty. As they traveled through the arid wilderness, worry started to creep into their hearts. At a place called Marah, they found water, but discovered it was bitter and undrinkable. Panic ensued as they cried out, "What will we drink?" They blamed Moses, their frustration boiling over. Understanding their fears, Moses turned to God for help. God instructed him to throw a piece of wood into the bitter waters, and when he did, the water became sweet and drinkable. The people were amazed. After they drank, God further reassured them, promising, "If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right, I will heal you." This moment reminded them that God was with them through every challenge. After leaving Marah, the Israelites traveled until they reached Elim, a beautiful oasis with 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. Here, they rested and enjoyed the bounty of water and shade. But their relief was short-lived. Traveling through the desert of sin, they began to grumble. "We wish we had died in Egypt," they cried. "At least there we had meat to eat. Now we are stuck in this wilderness with this miserable manna." Manna was the mysterious bread God provided, which fell from the sky each morning. While initially a blessing, they soon grew tired of it, longing for the foods of Egypt, forgetting their life of slavery. Moses and Aaron took their complaints to God. "What should we do? The people are unhappy," Moses said. God reassured them, promising to provide bread from heaven. The next morning, when the dew lifted, they saw a fine flake-like substance spread across the ground. "What is it?" they asked. Moses explained, "This is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." The Israelites gathered the manna, and it satisfied their hunger. God instructed them to collect only what they needed for each day. On the 6th day, they were to gather twice as much for their day of rest. While some obeyed, others collected too much, only to find their leftovers rotten. This lesson taught them to rely on God's daily provision. As time passed, God added quail to their meals, giving them meat in the evenings. Satisfied for a time, the Israelites continued their journey, yet challenges persisted. In Rephidim, they found themselves in desperate need of water again. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt?" they shouted at Moses. "To kill us with thirst?" Faced with their angry demands, Moses cried out to God again. God instructed him to strike the rock at Horeb with his staff, and when Moses did, water gushed out for the people to drink. Their complaints turned to cheers of gratitude as they filled their containers. While their physical needs were met, the Israelites faced spiritual challenges as well. They encountered the Amalekites, who attacked them in battle. Knowing they needed God's help, Moses directed Joshua to fight. While he stood on a hill with the staff of God raised, As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But when his hands lowered, the battle turned. Seeing Moses struggle, Aaron and Hur rushed to his side, providing a stone for him to sit on and holding up his arms. With their support, Moses kept his hands raised, leading the Israelites to victory. Afterward, he built an altar, declaring, "The Lord is my banner," recognizing that it was God who fought for them. As weeks passed, they traveled further until they reached Mount Sinai, where God would give them the laws to guide their community. Moses climbed the mountain to meet God, who told him, "Tell the people, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians. If you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured possession." On that mountain, Moses received the 10 Commandments, rules for the people to live by. Anticipating his return, the Israelites grew impatient and convinced Aaron to make a golden calf to worship. Moses descended aghast at their unfaithfulness after witnessing so many miracles. In anger, he shattered the tablets he carried. Realizing their sin, Moses pleaded with God to forgive them. God listened to his prayer and spared the nation, though consequences ensued. Moses returned to receive a new set of tablets, learning more about God's character and his laws. When Moses came down again, his face shone brightly from being in God's presence, and the people honored him as their leader. He began to teach them the laws, guiding them in their new identity as God's chosen people. Though challenges continued, the Israelites were learning vital lessons about obedience and reliance on God. Their journey through the wilderness was marked by miracles, trials, and faith, shaping them into a nation ready to embrace the blessings of the promised land.